early on in the game. Instead, now it runs like a Prison Scrap Imp, tries to rely on like more consistent waves of threats, which just doesn't seem like it works well enough for the deck. You might as well be playing something different in the lineup. I would say like Major Rogue, but he also has Major Rogue because he's running a Druidless and Warriorless lineup, which is just bizarre. This doesn't happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often, so we'll see if it ends up paying off for him as we go into game number 1 with the Malygos Druid over on Empanizado's side here. And Empanizado's Highlander Priest, as he does have a pretty reasonable opening, but needs to put on a lot more pressure. It does feel like Malygos Druid does feel like they I feel like they deal with Highlander Priest a little bit better because the Highlander Priest is not nearly as consistent with their ability to tempo, but it does kind of fluctuate, right? Because if they draw Zephrys, it becomes really hard to stop the Highlander Priest if they're able to keep their curve, similar to yours by ramping as well.
Yeah. Force of Nature.
Okay. I guess just because it helps generate board presence?
Yeah. I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's reasonable. I wouldn't say it's particularly good. I just think that if he didn't have anything to actually play, it would have been a lot worse of a situation. Because we time after time, we've seen decks that they struggle to actually develop anything after they ramp, and then they're in an even worse spot than they were before, even though they kept a really powerful potential hand through the overgrowth. So I think it's fine.
Briarthorn just has like nothing to do.
Yeah, I mean,
just a whole lot of nothing.
Mind Flayer seems like the best card to play in this spot, just to have a tempo 3/3 on the board. Entirely reasonable. Not preferable, though.
All right, so a couple options, I suppose. Yeah, I was going to say you can just play Twilight Runner onto the board or just keep ramping. You also had the upside of hitting a dragon off of the Breath of Dreams. But no reason for him to go super fast here. Might as well make use of the wild growth or the overgrowth while you can. While you have the mana, can go use multiple different ways to draw cards next turn. Including the overflow, since what this play does is also empty a little bit of hand space.
Yeah, I guess now is like the...
It doesn't run Broom 6.
Yeah, definitely one of the more interesting moments that will start entering in this game, as Overflow seems to be the card of choice here for Empanizado. He's basically more than double the mana crystals of Briarthorn, but he didn't have too many ways to follow it up right now if he just wants to crystal power and free up hand space. But now we're starting to cook with some gas here. We have Forsworn Omu. We have Germination. Then we can go off to the races. I guess the only thing we're really missing right now might be just Malygos himself.
Yeah. And some burn. But that'll come.
In due time.
Time waits for no one.
Partner assignment? I agree.
Good
call out, man.
I'm thinking about for the Forest Aid and just thinking about how it might be just useful to develop onto the board, but he has so many things to play proactively, he doesn't need it anymore.
I made a 4/4. Your turn.
I think so, right? Like, what else is he going to do right now. I'm not really sure.
This is like what? So this is probably embarrassing, but when I was learning Quest Rogue, not the modern Quest, but the Caverns Below Quest Rogue, just to like practice, like the sequencing and the combos, I would play against like the Innkeeper.
Okay.
And this is honestly what it feels like, which is you have like ramping up. Empanizado's like got this like super complicated hand. He's got like 10 mana, all these powerful things that he can do, and then he passes over to Briarthorn, and Briarthorn's just like, cool, spend all my mana and make a very inefficient minion, which is what the Innkeeper does a lot of time. I don't know. I just got flashbacks to that situation where Empanizado's like taking his time, trying to like come up with the best way to use all these cool resources, and Briarthorn's like, 5 mana 4/4, 3 mana 3/3.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like there's too much challenge being presented from Briarthorn's deck, is what I feel like you're saying right now, which I think I'm inclined to agree. As right now it does look very one-sided. Briarthorn looks and sees some random assortment of cards, Twilight Runner, Germination, and Partner Simon. None of them seem to particularly be super powerful in this instance.
Yeah.
I wonder.
I honestly, it's hard for me to say which one's better. It doesn't look like you're going to get bored from this put on. Germination. I mean, I guess if with Mind Flayer in hand, you can go Mind Flayer plus Germination next turn, which could be a cool combo. But Twilight Runner is just like the most consistent threat. Also allows him to draw cards and maybe get closer to, I don't know, Mind Render is what he'd be looking for in this instance, because Empanizado has been able to just do everything that he's wanted so far in the game. And it's only a matter of time before he pieces together enough damage to win. He has drawn, that's all his beasts, with that second Teacher's Pet picked up. And so he's got 2 dead guardian animals in his deck. But at the same time, he also has like all of his combo pieces. He has all of his big stuff. He has Geppetto, Alexstrasza, Malygos, and Ysera still left in his deck.
Yeah, almost everything that he really needs is still not available, but the Twilight Runner, I think, here is really key to help him draw that, which maybe in Briarthorn's mind might be worth responding to. He has 2 ways to try to deal with it. One, you could try and use Zephyrus, which may offer you that spot. I actually don't know if Zephyrus offers you Shadow Word Death in this position, versus, say, giving you other 5 mana plays to fill out your rest of your curve, since Shadow Word ruins 4 mana. He also has Galakron, try and go for 50-50, but obviously could enter a point of no return, where he goes into Galakron, his opponent plays Alexstrasza, he can't heal consistently, and then just kind of dies to inevitable tempo. Oh wow. So here we go. No, land on the Teacher's Pet.
Oh, jeez.
So bad for Briarthorn. Yep. Oh boy. Big Daddy Geppetto about to hit the board here for Empanizado. And he's very close to finding just game-ending damage from hand. The one issue, of course, is what happens if you play Geppetto and your opponent finds a way to get Mind Render or Lucia, and then you get comboed yourself.
Yeah, that's a problem, because he only has 3 minions left in this deck. It's Malygos, Alexstrasza, Ysera.
Right. So part of the issue, too, is that...
he's just going to go for it now. He's going to go for it now, because if he does pick up Malygos at all in any combination, he wins the game.
Right.
This...
super close.
No, that's not quite it.
Right, but he's dumping his hand, right? Understanding that right now he needs to go. It looked like a good idea because he really saw an opportunity to go for the lethal, but he needed to pick up Malygos, and then I kind of hope he got his attacks off here.
He did.
Okay, he did.
I mean, this was just the one attack. It was the Messenger Raven was the only other one.
Your wish is my suggestion.
Yeah, if he picked up Malygos, no, not at all, because he couldn't Germination it. He needed Malygos Alexstrasza. So Malygos Alexstrasza was lethal damage. Malygos by itself wasn't quite enough, because it would have been 12.
What if?
1, 2, 4, 5. Yeah, it was short by a good margin. But I mean, that play did play around the possibility of minor Echinacea.
Right, and now Briarthorn has to use his... Oh. Right, well, Briarthorn is dead. I think he's basically banking on the fact that Empanizado has swipes in the bottom 5 cards of the deck, basically, because we know that a lot of these cards are portals.
Yeah, it was 6 actual cards left in the deck, I believe. 7 actual cards, because right now there's 6 actual cards left in the deck. One of them swipe, one of them Malygos. But, you know, what can you do? It felt like Briarthorn wasn't given much opportunity to do much of anything in that game, and Empanizado, you know, had tried to do some fancy footwork at the end to play around a card that wasn't even in Briarthorn's hand. So it might have looked like a little messy at the end from Empanizado, but, you know, from our perspective, he could have just held on and just said, well, I'm going to play Geppetto and then do whatever I want. I could just hold on to all these resources. So really could have done whatever he wanted. But, you know, nicely navigated to play around, you know, probably the one thing that can punish him in that situation. But just a really brutal game for Briarthorn. Just didn't feel like he could really get a foothold.
Yeah, and as a result, you can see that Empanizado probably feels pretty good about that, because the other 2 classes are a lot better versus Priest versus the one that he just got a win with because of that threat of disruption, right? We've seen some of those Malygos Druid decks run into a wall with being able to get over some Priest decks in the past. However, it does seem like Empanizado is in a pretty good position right now, as he only has to get 2 more wins, and then he'll be already moving past game number 3 of his round robin stage here. Taking a look at how these 2 players have for the rest of their lineups here, they both have the Mage deck that features Sorcerer's Apprentice and the Mana Cyclones. If you look at Empanizado's list, it's actually got a lot of one-ofs, like a one-up Devolving Missile, one-up Mirror Image, the one-up Spellwing instead of 2, plays a Frostbolt straight up, which makes me feel like it's a nod to a few different kind of classes that we might see, whether it's him trying to be more mindful of Rogue, or, you know, maybe just classes that attack with their face like Demon Hunter entirely, because Frostbolt can be a really clutch card to stop them from dealing damage on key turns.
Yeah, it seems like Rogue or Demon Hunter. But, you know, honestly, like I mentioned earlier, Tempo Mage in a lineup where you're trying to counter Demon Hunter doesn't seem like the best choice, just because it's one of the poor decks against the Soul Demon Hunter specifically. But the Tempo Mage, I feel like, is going to do pretty great against this Zoo Warlock from Briarthorn. Again, slightly different from the Zoo Warlocks that we saw prior to the changes to Darkglare. We're back to Imprisoned Scrap Imp as a play. Obviously, it was nerfed in Ashes of Outland. Went from being give all your minions +2/+2 to +2/+1. Since then, it hasn't seen too much play. Zoo Warlock decks that we saw prior to Darkglare nerf, you know, rarely ran it, if at all. So we're less on the, you know, get these Flesh Giants out as soon as possible, and more on the, you know, build up consistent amounts of board pressure, and, you know, Flesh Giant will be in still a reasonably cheap 8/8, more of a traditional Zoo Warlock than what we've come to expect over the past few weeks.
Yep, that makes sense. Starting off with the right foot here, Flame Imp just to get board presence. And Empanizado does not have a direct answer. Something that he might even consider pointing out or finding a way to answer this this Flame Imp. Sometimes I'm tempted to try and preserve HP because I know how much pressure that they want to put out. So Astromancer Solarian can contest. And the next turn you have Magic Trick and you have Wand Thief. It doesn't feel pretty. I'm not even necessarily sure this. I'm still not even convinced this might be the best line, but like this is my first instinct when I look at this kind of board state from Zoo Warlock.
I can't move.
Seems
Well,
like
Dan-
Empanizado agrees and he does end up trading, but the Scrap Imp, we'll see if it ends up having any impact here.
This has been my problem when trying to practice this deck with the Imprisoned Scrap is, especially with this version of Warlock, you're not really incentivized to hold on to any of your cards. You really just want things on the board. And honestly, giving a Flesh Giant +2/+1, not that impactful, right?
Right.
When you're talking about like expending a card that has no immediate impact on the board to do so. So this, Prison Scrap Imp, unless it was exactly like Hand of Gul'dan picked up right there and he tour guided, hero powered into Expired Merchant, it's going to be pretty lackluster. And it looks like he is going to, give up the possibility of tempo in order to make sure that this Prison Scrap Imp is going to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah, he wants to go for a decisive swing because I do think Mage can struggle at times with that kind of stuff if they if there's a lot of tall and wide minions, and I feel like maybe that's what Briarthorn was going for with that Conrected in hand. Now he feels probably justified a little bit, but how do you best squeeze everything out? Now that you have Dark Glare, you have Tour Guide. You also have Conrected Prime. So if you play Conrected Prime, both of the Dark Glares become 1 mana, but you still need to have 1 mana to play the Tour Guide. So to play that, then you Hero Power, then you play the Dark Glare.
A little agony goes
Leave
a
Shinvala up,
long way.
but Empanizado's only work with 4 mana, so you're not too concerned about that double Devolving Missiles. I mean, yeah,
I mean, it looks good.
it looks great to me.
I mean, it could all go wrong, horribly wrong, if it doesn't hit most of the board in terms of its targets. So we'll see what the Devolving Missiles end up hitting. Okay, half the board. I actually am tempted to play Evocation in this spot sometimes, but seems like
Get a 5/5.
Empanizado wants to just go for the guaranteed Devolving Missiles on one of the targets.
Yeah, and I'm okay with this. Oh, missed the 4/4. Yikes!
Oh, that's so big. Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh, wow.
Why do you call?
Oh, wow.
Flesh Giants.
I was anticipating a little bit.
What makes something
I was anticipating Flesh Giant to hit the board as well. Well, I guess you're trying to preserve HP, so I don't know if you want your taunt minion to be susceptible to dying. At the same time, you do have the Cult Neophyte as a 5/3 on the board already, and therefore your 4/5 gets challenged, so might be fine if you set up some mind games here to pick the Naga Sandwich. Okay, so he does. Tour Guide picked up, which gives Briarthorn free light hero power, and he gets that mana crystal back.
Okay, Soul Jailer, not the most impactful pickup, but honestly, his deck right now is full of cards like that. Looking for Hand of Gul'dan, I think, is the big one here. Activate this Nightshade Mage, which is a 7/6, but has not been incentivized to play it because it hasn't wanted to get rid of some of these more expensive cards in his hand, especially not a Flesh Giant.
Almost out of time.
Yeah, this is definitely a sub-optimal situation for Briarthorn. He's been floating his mana crystals. That card, like the Nightshade Matron, has been even more complicated because he didn't play the Flesh Giant the previous turn, so now he's delayed some pretty big opportunity. He picks the trade up and gets the right call on which minion had been chosen by Jandis. Now, Empanizado does have to kind of make a decision if he wants to go for this Blizzard or if he wants to try his hand at some Mana Cyclone and Spell Generation.
I kind of want to wait one more turn, just Blizzard, and then go for the random stuff next turn.
I'm inclined to agree. I think that Blizzard makes sense here, particularly because your opponent has to spend their turn hero powering right back. So it's not like they have a lot going on for them. Chooses the magic trick, sees a couple of secrets. And I'm not entirely sure if Empanizado knew exactly how this was going to pan out, but it ended up working out really nicely.
It did. Oh, Hand of Gul'dan. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, one thing that Briarthorn has to worry about is his life total. I mean, not too much, because this Mage deck doesn't run that direct burn.
And he gets to save the Blizzard, which is huge. Being able to stop that from being relevant here.
Yep. And this turn can go like triple Ray, Mana Cyclone, something along those lines. Follow that up with Blizzard. Alternatively, could just go Blizzard here, but it feels like you want to get the random spells first, and then maybe follow up just to see what you get. I don't know. That one's kind of difficult. Empanizado hasn't even attacked Briarthorn, I don't think. He's at 10. I guess that's the Warlock.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Oh, Empanizado's just looking for lethal.
Sure. I mean,
he
this
can
one's
still
been
triple
kind
Ray
of
now.
fast-paced here, and Briarthorn is almost dead, so there could be a way for Empanizado to get this over that finish line. As he just Ray of Frost ×3 and let Briarthorn slowly whittle his own life down. And this is definitely some of the issue that we've seen with this deck in the past.
Like I don't even know how much he wants to clear off these minions because he doesn't even want to play the Flame in.
Yeah.
Your image is more time being bought. Alright. So Blizzard Mana Cyclone, maybe that 2 damage pushes next turn. Also, he just needs like a Fireball, so every step that he can get closer to that, That's good. The more mana he gets, the more evocations online too. Well, you know, forgot about the soul fragments. There's one more soul fragment and another spirit jailer, so that could provide him with the healing he needs. There's not really many
Okay,
ways for
scrap
him
him?
to like finish the game.
I can't move.
Yeah, can just use this to rush into the Mana Cyclone. Take out the 2/2, because it does seem like Briarthorn's caught on to the fact that Empanizado is just trying to potentially burn him out. Oh my goodness. Is it that time of the day already?
Well, if he doesn't get anything like ultra defensive, or just kill Briarthorn, mirror image may not be enough to save him, but I can't imagine that Slayer Prime just completely whiffs, and he always has Frostbolt to you know, freeze one of these giants, or you know, push the last points of damage. Oh, he's going for evocation, looking for lethal or freeze. There it is!
Fireball!
Oh, but he doesn't have enough mana.
He's off by one. Playing the mirror image cost him the ability to kill TJ.
Yeah. You know,
It's
luckily
okay,
enough
'cause
for
you can
him, Kona Cold is actually sick.
Well, another option is to actually play Fireball to the face, then Arcane Explosion, and you're still alive. Interesting, okay.
Not the greatest Kona Cold positioning, but to be fair, not something you often think about.
Ooh. Wait. Am I missing something?
What? What?
Hold on, let's just watch the Solarian Prime here. Oh, Kona Cold. Oh, and it targets the right minions.
He just saw that he got punished for Kona Cold positioning, and then he just didn't care about it again.
Yeah. So TJ, why didn't this Mana Giant come down the previous turn is what I wanted to know. I think it's because he ended his turn too quickly. I don't know. This game has kind of gotten a little bit out of hand on both sides. You can see Empanizado does not necessarily look even that satisfied with his own gameplay. Well, that's a concede. And Empanizado's going to go up 2-0, but it was a little ugly on the way there, but we got there. That's what's important. Just as long as those don't really cost you the game is important. But yeah, a lot happened in those few turns, TJ, that I think if we were to go in slow motion, we could talk about like different things that you have to be thinking about and accounting for before you commit to certain things.
Yeah.
Like, look at what cards you draw before you end your turn, or positioning around the Cone of Colds, or just, you know, if you are going to play for a lethal out, like, at least give yourself the ability to have that lethal out with
the
your
mana to play. Yeah, because that's the only thing that gives him lethal. So if you're going to go for evocation in that spot, just for defensive capabilities, Slayer Prime's just like way better. So
yeah.
Because it's the same, except you just cast all of those spells, right? So I don't know. Moving on,
we'll
though,
see.
Dan.
Moving on.
Stealth
Moving on.
Rogue for Empanizado now. It is the very aggressive Stealth Rogue.
Yes, I like the Stealth Rogue a lot, particularly because I'm a big fan of Infiltrator Lillian. I think the Burning Scorpid has killed me more times than I'd like to admit. It is a very solid tempo card. Nothing too amazing.
Back.
Solid.
All right. Regitutor seems pretty great.
Yes, Regiture seems excellent.
Oh, it keeps Mindrender or Lucia.
What does he think? I guess it's just he feels like Manrender Lucio would be great if he could just like disable Secret Passage and other aggressive tools. You think that makes the most sense? Yeah.
Okay.
It is a little bit sketchy if you don't have anything else, but it turns out he had pretty close to the ideal hand with Zephyrus, Wretched Tutor.
Yeah, he did get Zephyrus all the top. I don't know. Mindrender Lucia is like the... I don't like keeping it. Stats agree with me. It's like, against aggressive rogues, it's the third lowest win rate card when kept in the mulligan.
Oh, wow. That low, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It gets a little higher when you like don't filter for rogue, and you know tournament is a little bit different because the decks are often teched a little bit different. But I feel like Empanizado is playing like a pretty like standard hyper aggressive rogue. At the very best, it's in the bottom 10, well below a 50% win rate across the board. So I don't know. Maybe if you keep it with other good stuff. It can be good, which he did keep it with other good stuff. Like he kept it with Wretched Tutor Renew. Wretched Tutor being great against Stealth Rogue on that point because it gives you an immediate way to answer any stealth minion. And plays out kind of an awkward opening hand here. Has to play this Hooked Scimitar just to clear stuff off the board, and because of the slow start, Briarthorn's offered the opportunity to, I guess you could call it, get a little bit greedy, because, you know, he could save that Zephyrus for weapon destruction, be a little bit more defensive, but goes for ramp, which just gives him more mana to play the weapon destruction that he already has in his deck, and more mana to play the, just to try and get ahead on board as much as possible. More mana for the Mindrender Lucia!
Ooh, I like it.
Grades getting low.
Well, I mean, at this point, it seems like Briarthorn is in full control because Empanizado had no real curve, and so that's a recipe for success, especially if your opponent whiffs. The Infiltrator Lillian gets the damage in, but like Briarthorn right now is in so much control over this early game. And it feels like Empanizado really has to get going soon, has to pick up something really big, finds nothing. Everything is combo-oriented in his hand, except for Sinister Strike, so I think that can start things off here.
Oh.
And if I'm Empanizado, I'm tempted to actually just double down on that, like Sinister Strike, either Hook Scimitar or even Cold Blood, and just go in.
Yeah. I actually don't mind like Sinister Strike, Eviscerate Wretched Tutor, and Dagger it down.
Okay.
Just because it keeps the 4-2 alive on board. I mean,
So many.
that's a lot of respect for like Apotheosis, but you know, at this point, I don't know. Maybe with a rough start and Briarthorn ramping, he's bound to have an answer no matter what. So maybe just raw damage is the way. Hook Scimitar is probably the least appealing, just because there's multiple forms of weapon removal in Briarthorn's deck, and you don't want to leave yourself too vulnerable to that. So you know, if I'm gonna make like a play that plays around something, I'm probably just gonna go. All right, well, I either wanted to kill the 2/5 or use Cold Blood while I have a minion on board.
I mean, this makes sense to me as well, largely because it says from Empanizado's perspective, like, I think you're a Highlander deck, and I don't think you have the consistency of being able to deal with this all the time.
Wait. Oh, he just wants to... Hold on. Okay. Okay. He mind flared the weaker minion. He mind flared the 3/2 instead of the 4/2.
4/2? Yeah. Okay, well, Empanizado has 3, 7, 11.
So many options.
See, this is the problem that I have with Coldblood. It feels like he's just going to sit dead in the hand for a while.
Yeah. I mean, one stealth minion is all it takes to unlock a hand like this, but unfortunately, like, Briarthorn's already, it felt like super early on in the game that he already kind of ran away with things. And now he's got time. I honestly don't even know what you do here. Like,
Choose soon.
it might even just be attack face stagger up. I guess you can play Cold Neophyte just to make it so that if Briarthorn wants to get like a huge amount of tempo with just spells, you're okay. Like he can't do quite as much, but like I would honestly.
Why would
even
he
be
not throw
opposed to the
Eviscerate
thing.
in? Does he feel like he needs to save that for something specific?
Surprise burst damage. Yeah, if he's going to play anything, I would probably play the Eviscerate too. I mean, one thing is you never expect your opponents to keep Mind Render or Lucia. You expect them to keep like weapon removal and things like that, but he also played the Mind Render or Lucia into. I guess he's giving him a Soul Mirror, but wait, what?
Yeah, this.
You can only because he played it into a Cold Neophyte. He can only dump one thing.
Yeah, almost as if Briarthorn helped Empanizado in a way. Or rather, Empanizado blocked the Mind Render of Lucia from having a high impact. And Soul Mirror... Soul Mirror versus playing weaker stuff onto the board right now.
So many options.
The problem is the imprisoned Vile Fiend is popping out next turn, so there's really not much merit into playing like Sethic plus Wave, and like Sethic plus Wave is not like the best tools to just dump from your opponent's hand, because in this matchup it doesn't feel like they're super impactful because you're a lot of times you're playing Self Mins. I'd much rather get rid of Soul Mirror.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree, but looks like Empanizado just commits to the Soul Mirror anyways. Ends up dealing a little bit with Briarthorn's board, who now has the ability to actually kind of win on the tempo side, because Empanizado still has no stealth minions. Yeah, I mean, you know what your hand can do, or rather specifically what it can't do. Now you can dump?
Sure, Dan.
More specifically, actually, you can even set up
2-turn lethal.
2-turn lethal, yeah. Okay, very wisely spreads the damage so that way Shadow Word Death doesn't completely destroy him. Although now Empanizado picks up the Cabal Shadow Priest.
He could Wave of Apathy and Cabal Shadow Priest.
Mind Render Lucia.
I guess if that's the case, it makes him take less damage. I don't know actually. He could Shadow or Death and then Cabal Shadow Priest Mind Render. I guess he doesn't want to take too much damage. It's just hard to imagine a scenario where he wins from here. Because he's getting a Grey Heart Sage back next turn. Just needs to do
Yeah, I
play
think
that.
from this perspective, like, Empanizado just needs to survive as long as he can.
Alright, so Wave of Apathy. Looks like it's play. Not sure. They both take like a similar amount of power off board. The Shadow Word Death, Wave of Apathy takes off more immediate power, whereas
Let
the
me change your mind.
Shadow Word Death takes off more permanence. But yeah, because that's the 5 attack mage. No, this is way better. I guess you just slam a Dragon Queen, Alexstrasza.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Just threaten your opponent. Oh, wow.
Life and hope are worth fighting.
Well, he doesn't have a 2-turn lethal this way. But maybe it doesn't matter just because he has such high-quality demons, or dragons, rather. Secret Passage comes into the hand for Empanizado. Maybe that trade into the 3-attack minion ends up being the saving grace here. Second Secret Passage. Empanizado definitely wants to play one stealth minion. He also knows the hand of the opponent, right? Except for the dragons.
He only knows the... I don't think he knows the Plague of Death. He only knows the Sethic Veilweaver and the Shadow Word Death. Right now, he really just needs to find a sap. Is what it seems like what he's looking for.
Yes, that makes sense.
Can still find it with Greyheart Sage.
Choose soon.
Can't actually survive on board though just by going Dagger and South Sea Deckhand, but like I like the permanence of just drawing cards.
Yep.
No sap. But he does find another stealth minion.
Wow, just concedes. Briarthorn's able to take game number 3, and the Priest able to withstand the Rogue's pressure. A little bit surprising, given that I feel like Priest does sometimes just kind of buckle to that pressure, but it seemed like Empanizado was such a slow start, no ability to really press in, and also like, you know, the ability to, or rather the inability for him to be able to push enough damage out before Mindrender Lucia ×2 took away almost all of his damage, really cost him there. So the aggressive rogue just needs a steady streamline of damage output. It didn't seem like Empanizado was able to really land that consistently. And that is part of the criticism against Stealth Rogue, where like there is a part of the deck that feels like it's dedicated to finishing the game, and if you do end up hitting that part, it's not really going to do a lot. So we'll see if he's able to get that against the Mage and the Zoo Warlock. These are also other classes that I think the Rogue should feel a little bit more confident in.
Especially the Warlock. They're killing themselves. All you have to do is give them a little bit of help.
Yeah, right. Very much so. It does feel like Warlock generally doesn't necessarily deal with the rogue minions very well because they have like stealth. So stealth minions aren't exactly easy to target with the Zoo Warlock.
Watch your back.
And that early curve from Empanizado was looking like what he was missing that previous game.
Yep. The pieces to kind of tie it together a little bit. And,
all right, well, turn 1's looking pretty good on both sides, but the backstab is pretty devastating.
Ooh. So, Briarthorn keeps Imprisoned Scrap Imp and can with that Ebon Lock throws away the Hand of Gul'dan. So you can kind of see like where his mindset is for the matchup, where he just wants as consistent of minion pressure as he possibly can. But at the same time, like Hand of Gul'dan, you know, and pitching away like Imprisoned Scrap Imp, which I don't think is particularly good in the matchup because you don't have time to wait 2 turns in order for your stuff to be bigger because you're going to die. And if you're wanting to like kind of wait for 2 turns, you might as well just keep the Hand of Gul'dan and look for Expired Merchant or Night Shield. So we'll see if it's going to pay off, but you know he's just going to take this the damage from these stealth minions because he, you know, forewent the Flame Imp on turn 1, played a minion that contests nothing on turn 2, and life taps on turn 3. I mean, He's gonna be dead on turn 4.
Yes, this looks very much like Empanizado is really going to pile in the damage, and Briarthorn has to basically hope that there's no damage from the hand. There's a lot of damage from the hand.
I smell blood.
I'm not even really sure if Briarthorn
There is so much untapped power.
senses any danger here. He just plays his flame imp, right?
He's dead.
It just life taps.
Even if he soul fires the 3/1, he's dead. He just died.
What? I don't think I've seen a legitimate kill this fast in Hearthstone in quite some time, where like one player didn't concede because they knew it was over. This is an actual turn 4 lethal, straight up, and he had overkill. All right, well, game 4 goes to Empanizado and improves his record in Division B, a key victory.
I'm not even
well done.
convinced that game of Hearthstone even happened.
Yeah,
That's how. I don't know. That was
can't really step away from your screen too long because you might miss the aggro rogue versus the zoo warlock game. That was super fast. Wow.
Yeah. And